Your mom was 17 when she had Lily. I began, my voice trembling. She was young, scared, and alone. Your dad, Mark, he wasn't in the picture yet. There was another guy, someone she thought she loved. But when she told him she was pregnant, he walked away. Ethan's jaw clenched, his fist tightening in his lap. She moved back here with me, I continued, my throat tight. I did everything I could to help her, but it wasn't easy. She had no money, no job, and the town. Well, you know how people talk. She was drowning, Ethan. And then Lily was born. I closed my eyes, the memories flooding back, the tiny hospital room, Claire's tear-streaked face, the fragile cry of a newborn that lasted only a few days. She didn't make it, I whispered, my voice breaking. Lily. She only lived for 3 days. Ethan's breath hitched, his face pale. 3 days? I nodded slowly. Your mom was shattered. She blamed herself, said she didn't deserve to be a mother. For years, she carried that guilt like a weight around her neck. When she met Mark, he knew about Lily, but they agreed to leave it in the past. To start over. Tears spilled down Ethan's cheeks, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, he said, "Why didn't she tell me? Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because she wanted to protect you from her pain," I said gently. "She didn't want you growing up thinking your mom was broken. She wanted you to have a life free of that shadow." He stared at the photograph in his hands, his tears dripping onto the faded image. But now that shadow's all I can see. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away, standing abruptly. "I need to talk to her," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in it. "Ethan." "No," he shouted, his voice raw. "I'm done with lies. I'm going home." And just like that, he was gone, down the stairs, out the door, his car engine roaring to life before I could even stand. I stood at the window, watching him speed down the road, my chest hollow. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because when Ethan walked through that door at home, the truth wouldn't just hurt. It would destroy everything. By the time Ethan pulled into his driveway, the sun had dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. But there was nothing beautiful about what was coming next. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His mind was a storm of questions, anger, betrayal, and underneath it all, a hollow ache he couldn't name. Inside the house, Claire was pacing the living room, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. She'd been calling Ethan every 5 minutes since he hung up on her, each unanswered call ratcheting up her anxiety. When she finally heard the crunch of tires in the driveway, her heart leapt, and then sank just as quickly. The front door flew open, and Ethan stood there, framed by the glow of the setting sun, his face hard and tear-streaked. "Ethan," Claire began, but he cut her off with a single word. "Why?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Claire's breath caught. "Sweetheart, please. Don't," he snapped, his voice shaking with rage. "Don't call me that. Not after everything." Mark appeared in the doorway to the kitchen, confusion etched on his face. "What's going on?" Ethan turned on him, eyes blazing. "Why don't you tell me, Dad? Or should I say, did you know Mom had a baby before me? Did you know I had a sister?" The color drained from Mark's face. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. That silence was all the confirmation Ethan needed. "Oh my God," he whispered, his chest heaving. "You did know." "Ethan, please," Claire said, stepping forward, her hands trembling. "I can explain." "Explain what?" he shouted, his voice cracking like glass. "That you had a whole other kid and just pretended she didn't exist? That you lied to me my whole life?" Tears welled in Claire's eyes. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Mom?" Ethan's voice broke, raw and desperate. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you erased her. Like she didn't matter. Like I didn't deserve to know I had a sister." Claire covered her mouth, choking on a sob. Mark moved toward Ethan, his voice calm but strained. "Son, listen." "No." Ethan's eyes burned with fury. "Don't you dare try to calm me down. You both lied to me. You let me grow up thinking our family was perfect, when it was just a damn cover-up." Claire's knees buckled, and she sank onto the couch, her face buried in her hands. Mark knelt beside her, his jaw tight, his own eyes glistening. "I want the truth," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "All of it. Right now." Claire looked up, her face streaked with tears, and for the first time, she didn't see her little boy standing there. She saw a man, broken, angry, betrayed, and it shattered her. "Her name was Lily," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan's breath hitched. "Lily," he repeated, the word tasting foreign and familiar all at once. Claire nodded slowly. "I was 17 when I had her. I thought I was in love. But when I told him, 'Your biological father,' he left." The room spun for Ethan. Biological father. The word slammed into him like a freight train. "Wait," he said, his voice sharp and shaky. "You mean that isn't?" Mark's shoulders tensed, his head bowing. Claire reached out a trembling hand. "Mark is your father in every way that matters. He raised you. He loves you." "Stop," Ethan shouted, tears spilling down his cheeks. "Just stop. You lied about everything. About Lily. About him. About us." Claire sobbed, the sound gutting. "I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to grow up with the pain I carried." "And what about my pain?" Ethan's voice cracked, the anger giving way to heartbreak. "You didn't think this would destroy me?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Mark finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "Ethan, I may not be your biological father, but I have loved you since the day you were born. That hasn't changed." Ethan's chest heaved. "Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't anyone think I deserved the truth?" Mark swallowed hard. "Because we were afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid you'd hate us." Ethan let out a bitter laugh, his eyes shimmering with tears. "Well, congratulations," he said hoarsely. "You were right." He turned and stormed toward the door, ignoring Claire's desperate cry. "Ethan, please." But he didn't stop. The door slammed, and then he was gone, again. Claire collapsed against Mark, her sobs racking her body. "He hates me," she whispered. "God, he hates me." Mark wrapped his arms around her, his own face pale and stricken. "He just needs time," he said softly, though his voice trembled with doubt. But as Ethan drove into the night, his hands shaking on the wheel, he wasn't thinking about time. He wasn't thinking about forgiveness. He was thinking about the one person who had answers his parents couldn't give him. His grandfather. And if Grandpa had lied about this, what else had he been hiding? Because deep down, Ethan knew this wasn't the end of the secrets. It was just the beginning. The night air was heavy, thick with the scent of summer rain. Ethan's tires screeched against the gravel as he pulled into my driveway, headlights slicing through the dark like twin daggers. I'd been sitting on the porch, nursing a glass of whiskey I'd been staring at for an hour, waiting for this moment. The car door slammed, and then he was storming toward me, his face set like stone, his eyes burning with something deeper than anger, betrayal, maybe even hate. My heart sank. "Ethan," I started, but he cut me off with a roar. "No more lies." His voice cracked the quiet night like thunder. "You hear me? No more half-truths. No more protecting me. No more, it's for your own good. I want everything. Now." His fists were clenched, his chest heaving, and in that moment, I saw his mother in him again. Claire at 17, fire in her eyes, daring the world to break her. And just like back then, I felt helpless. I nodded slowly, setting the glass down on the railing. "Come inside," I said quietly. "You deserve the truth." He followed me into the dim light of the living room. The box sat on the coffee table where I'd left it earlier, its contents spilling out like an open wound. Ethan's eyes flicked to it, then back to me. "You told me about Lily," he said, his voice sharp. "You told me about Mom being 17. But you didn't tell me everything. Who was her father? Who was the guy that left her?" I drew a deep breath, my hands trembling as I sank into the armchair. "That's complicated." "Complicated?" Ethan's laugh was bitter, hollow. "You've had 17 years to figure out how to say it. So just say it." My throat tightened. I dreaded this day for decades. Dreaded the moment I'd have to peel back the last layer of the lie and show him the rot underneath. "Ethan," I began slowly, my voice cracking. Your mother. She didn't fall in love with some stranger. The man who fathered Lily. The man who left her when she told him she was pregnant. I hesitated, my chest heaving with the weight of what I was about to say. It was Mark's brother. The words landed like a bomb. Ethan froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. What? I swallowed hard, my voice breaking now. Mark's older brother, Daniel. He was 22, wild, reckless. Your mom. She thought he cared about her. And maybe he did, for a while. But when she told him about the baby, he walked away. Ethan staggered back a step, his face pale. So, my mom had a baby with my dad's brother? And no one told me? I nodded slowly, tears burning my eyes. Mark knew. That's why he raised you like his own. He wanted to give your mom the life Daniel never could. He loved her enough to take on her pain, her past, all of it. And when you were born, he swore none of it would ever touch you. Ethan's hands shook as he gripped the back of the couch. And what about Daniel? Where is he? I hesitated again, the final, ugliest truth clawing its way out of the dark. He's dead, I whispered. He died in a car accident a year after Lily. Drunk driving. He never came back, never said a word to Claire. Never even knew she lost the baby. Ethan stared at me, his chest rising and falling like he couldn't catch his breath. So all this time, Mom carried that secret. And you helped her. Yes, I said, my voice breaking. Because she was drowning, Ethan. And because I thought I could shield you from all this. From the ugliness. From the pain. He laughed then, a broken, jagged sound that made my stomach twist. You didn't shield me, Grandpa. You built my whole life on a lie. And now it's all I can see when I look at them. At you. I felt the tears spill over, hot against my weathered cheeks. I'm sorry, I whispered. God, I'm so sorry. If I could take it back. But before I could finish, Ethan turned, his fist slamming against the wall. The pictures rattled, one falling face down onto the carpet. He stood there, shoulders trembling, his breath ragged. And then, slowly, he looked back at me. Do they know you told me everything? He asked, his voice low, dangerous. I shook my head. Not yet. He nodded once, his jaw tightening. Good. Because I'm not ready to look at them, not yet. He grabbed his jacket from the chair, his movements sharp, almost violent. I need to get out of here. Ethan, I started, but he was already at the door. He paused for just a second, his back to me. His voice, when it came, was hoarse and cold. Grandpa, you were the one person I thought I could trust. And then he was gone. The door closed softly behind him, not a slam this time, just a quiet, devastating click that echoed louder than any shout. I sank back into the chair, my body trembling, my breath shallow. Outside, the night stretched on, endless and merciless. And I knew, with a clarity that cut me to the bone, that nothing would ever be the same again. Because secrets don't just destroy the people who keep them. They destroy the people they're kept from. And in the silence of that empty house, surrounded by the ghosts of my mistakes, I realized something else, something darker. This wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of the fallout. Ethan drove aimlessly through the empty streets, the radio turned off, the silence pressing against him like a vice. Streetlights flickered past, cold and indifferent as his thoughts tangled into a knot of anger, grief, and confusion. The world felt different now, darker, heavier, because every memory he'd ever had was tainted. Every family dinner, every bedtime story, every time his mom told him how much she loved him, was it all a lie? Or was it real, and the truth just made it feel fake? His phone buzzed in the passenger seat, lighting up with a flurry of missed calls and texts. Mom, Dad, Grandpa, even Mia, his best friend since middle school, had texted. Mia, where are you? Your mom is blowing up my phone. Are you okay? He wanted to reply. He wanted to scream, cry, tell someone everything. But what could he even say? Hey, guess what? My whole life is a lie. My mom had a baby she never told me about. My dad isn't even my dad. Oh, and my grandpa helped cover it all up. Instead, He shoved the phone face down on the seat and pressed harder on the gas. He ended up at the lake. The one where he used to fish with Grandpa when he was little. Back when life was simple. Back when he thought love meant honesty. He killed the engine and sat there in the dark, staring at his reflection in the water. Who was he now? If Mark wasn't his real dad, then who was he? Just some kid born from a mistake. A secret no one wanted to share? He hated himself for thinking it, but the thought wouldn't go away. By the time he dragged himself home, it was nearly midnight. The lights were still on. His parents were waiting in the living room, their faces pale and drawn. "Ethan," Claire said, standing as he walked in. Her voice was shaky, almost pleading. "Please, let's talk." But he didn't stop, didn't look at them. He just walked past, his eyes fixed on the stairs. "Ethan." Mark's voice was sharp now. "You can't just walk away from this." He spun around so fast the world tilted. "Walk away from what? The fact that my entire life is a damn lie? What do you want me to say? Thanks for raising me, Dad, even though you're not really my dad. Or should I thank Mom for erasing my sister like she never existed?" Claire flinched like he'd slapped her. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't speak. Couldn't. Mark stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Enough. You're angry, fine. You have every right to be. But don't you dare talk to your mother like that." Ethan let out a harsh laugh, tears stinging his eyes. "Why not? She's the one who lied to me the most. Because she did what she thought was best for you." Mark's voice thundered through the house, raw and ragged. "You think this was easy for her? For us? You think we enjoyed living with this secret every day, terrified of this exact moment?" Ethan's chest heaved, his nails digging into his palms. "Then why didn't you just tell me? Why let me grow up thinking everything was perfect when it wasn't?" Claire finally spoke, her voice breaking. "Because I wanted you to have a life that wasn't defined by my mistakes. Because I wanted you to feel whole, Ethan, not broken." "Well, congratulations," he said bitterly. "You failed." The words sliced through her, and Ethan hated himself the second they left his mouth. But he didn't take them back. Couldn't. He stormed upstairs, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. He collapsed on his bed, burying his face in his hands, the weight of it all crushing him. For hours, he lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling like he was falling and there was no bottom. The next morning, he couldn't face them, couldn't stand the sight of their tear-streaked faces, their quiet voices asking if he was okay. So he left, grabbed his keys, his hoodie, and bolted out the door before they could stop him. He drove until the streets blurred into something unrecognizable, ended up in front of Mia's house without even meaning to. For a long time, he sat there, engine running, wondering if he should leave. But when the porch light flicked on and Mia stepped outside, barefoot and worried, he couldn't run anymore. "Ethan?" she whispered as she walked up to the car. "God, you look like hell." He let out a humorless laugh. "Feel like it too." "Talk to me," she said softly, sliding into the passenger seat without asking. "What happened?" For a moment, he couldn't speak. The words clogged in his throat, thick with shame and anger. But then they spilled out. Everything. The box, the photograph, Lily, Daniel, the lies that stretched across 17 years. Mia sat in silence, her eyes wide, her hand covering her mouth. When he finally finished, she whispered, "Ethan, I'm so sorry." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping. "Sorry doesn't fix anything. It doesn't make me feel like less of a mistake." "Don't say that," Mia said sharply, grabbing his arm. "You're not a mistake." "Then what am I?" he shot back, his voice cracking. "Because right now, I feel like a secret they were ashamed of. Like I don't even know who I am anymore." She squeezed his arm, her own eyes glassy. "You're Ethan. You're the same guy who made me laugh so hard in math class I got detention. The guy who taught me to drive even though you almost crashed my mom's car. The guy who's always been there for me. That's who you are. Not some secret, not some lie." Her words cracked something open inside him, a small fissure in the wall of anger and hurt. For the first time since this nightmare started, he felt seen. He swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. "Then why doesn't it feel like enough?" Mia didn't answer. She just pulled him into a hug, and for a moment, Ethan let himself break, right there in her arms, the weight of 17 years crashing down in sobs he couldn't hold back anymore. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Because if he wanted peace, if he wanted answers, he had to go back to the beginning. Back to Grandpa. And this time, he wouldn't leave until he knew everything. The summer heat was unforgiving that day, the kind that makes the asphalt shimmer and turns every breath into a chore. My grandson, Ethan, had just turned 17, a sharp-eyed, restless soul who never seemed to run out of questions. He had my daughter's stubborn streak and my son-in-law's curiosity, a dangerous combination, if you ask me. He'd come over to help me clean the garage, or so he said. But I knew teenagers well enough to recognize when something else was on their mind. He'd been quiet all morning, glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking, and I could feel the weight of some unasked question pressing on him. "Grandpa," he finally said, breaking the silence as we dragged a dusty old tarp across the floor. "Why do you keep so much stuff in here? Most of it looks ancient." I chuckled, leaning on my broom. "Because, kiddo, every piece of junk in here tells a story. And stories, well, they're all I've got left these days." He grinned, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of curiosity, maybe even suspicion, that made my heart skip. Over the years, I'd mastered the art of telling stories that entertained but revealed nothing of the truths I'd buried deep. Truths that, if unearthed, could shatter everything Ethan believed about his family, about me. We worked in silence for a while, the rhythmic scrape of the broom and the occasional clang of metal filling the space between us. And then, it happened. "Hey, what's this?" Ethan's voice cut through the air, laced with excitement. I turned, my blood running cold when I saw what he was pointing at, a large, worn-out wooden box shoved behind a stack of old paint cans. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't seen that box in years. I'd hidden it away, certain no one would ever find it. I forced a laugh, trying to sound casual. "Just some old junk. Leave it be." But Ethan didn't listen. Of course he didn't. He dragged the box out with both hands, coughing as a cloud of dust rose around him. The sight of it, the faded wood, the rusty hinges, was like a punch to the gut. Memories I'd locked away decades ago came rushing back, threatening to drown me. "What's inside?" Ethan asked, his voice almost trembling with anticipation. "Nothing worth your time," I said quickly, maybe too quickly. "Old papers. Tools. Garbage." He smirked. "Then you won't mind if I take a peek, right?" Panic surged through me. I stepped forward, placing a firm hand on the lid. "Ethan, some things are better left alone." He frowned, confusion and a hint of hurt flashing across his face. "Why?" "It's just a box." I looked at him, then really looked at him. He had his mother's eyes, the same hazel green that could cut straight through me. And for a brief second, I saw her as she was at 17, bright, beautiful, stubborn as hell. My throat tightened. "It's not just a box," I whispered before I could stop myself. His brows furrowed. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. Instead, I felt something shift inside me, a crack in the wall I'd spent a lifetime building. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like I owed him the truth. Or maybe I was just tired of carrying this burden alone. But I couldn't tell him. Not yet. "Come on, Grandpa," he said softly, almost pleading now. "You always tell me stories about everything. Why not this?" His words twisted the knife in my chest. If he only knew the truth behind those stories, the lies I told to protect him. To protect all of us. I stepped back, my hand trembling as I reached for a rag to wipe the sweat from my brow. "Ethan," I said slowly, carefully, "promise me something. If you open that box, there's no going back. You think you want answers, but answers, they can break you." He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. But it wasn't enough to stop him. He pulled the lid open with a sharp creak, and just like that, decades of secrets spilled out before us. The first thing he pulled out was an old photograph, yellowed with age, its edges curled. His eyes narrowed as he stared at it, then at me. "Grandpa," he said slowly, his voice almost shaking, Why are mom and dad in this picture? With a baby that's not me? My heart plummeted. Behind him, sunlight streamed through the dusty window, illuminating the box's contents, letters, documents, photographs. Pieces of a truth so dark, so devastating, that it could tear our family apart forever. And in that moment, I knew there was no turning back. Because the secret I'd buried, the secret I'd sworn to take to my grave, was no longer mine alone. And Ethan was about to learn that everything he believed about his parents, about me, about our entire family, was a lie. Ethan didn't look at me right away. His eyes were glued to the photograph in his hands, his fingers gripping the edges like it might vanish if he blinked. I could see the question forming in his mind, a storm brewing behind those hazel eyes. He turned the picture toward me. Who is this? My heart pounded so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. The photograph was taken nearly 2 decades ago, long before Ethan was born. It showed his mother, my daughter Claire, barely out of her teens, standing in front of a modest little house with her arm around a man who wasn't her husband. And in her arms, a baby girl. That's not mom and dad's house, Ethan said, his voice unsteady. And that's not me. So, who is it? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat felt like it had closed up. I could see the anger simmering in his eyes now, the fear creeping in around the edges. Grandpa, his voice cracked. What is this? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Ethan, that picture. It's from a long time ago, before your parents were married. He frowned, confusion washing over his features. So the guy, he's not dad? I shook my head slowly. No. And the baby? His voice grew sharp. Who's the baby? The air in the garage felt heavy, suffocating. I wanted to lie, to make up some story that would keep the truth buried. But something in his eyes, something so raw and desperate, told me I couldn't. Not this time. That baby, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, is your sister. For a moment, silence hung between us, thick and crushing. Ethan blinked like he hadn't heard me right. What? Your sister, I repeated, forcing the words out even though they felt like shards of glass in my throat. Her name was Lily. Ethan staggered back a step, the photograph trembling in his hand. Was, he echoed. What do you mean, was? I swallowed hard. She's gone, Ethan. His breath hitched, his eyes wide with disbelief. Gone? Like, dead? I nodded slowly, my chest aching as old memories clawed their way to the surface, memories I'd spent years trying to forget. The hospital room. The cries that faded too soon. The way Claire's face broke that day, shattering into 1,000 pieces I couldn't put back together. Ethan shook his head violently, his voice cracking with anger. No, that doesn't make sense. Mom never said anything. Dad never said anything. Why would they hide something like that from me? Because they wanted to protect you, I said gently. Protect me from what? He snapped, his voice rising. From knowing I had a sister? From the truth? His words cut deep, but I let them. I deserved it. Ethan, I said softly, stepping closer. Sometimes the truth can do more harm than good. Your parents thought it was best this way. He laughed bitterly, a sound that didn't belong in his young mouth. Best for who? Them? You? Because it sure as hell wasn't best for me. He turned back to the box, digging through it with shaking hands. More photographs, letters, hospital bills, pieces of a past I'd hoped would never see daylight. His fingers closed around a folded piece of paper, and before I could stop him, he unfolded it. His eyes darted across the page, his lips moving silently as he read. Then, slowly, he looked up at me, his face pale. You knew, he whispered, his voice trembling. You knew all along. I felt my knees weaken. Ethan, you knew, and you lied to me. All those stories you told me about family and love and honesty. His voice cracked, tears spilling down his cheeks. You were lying the whole time. The words sliced through me like a blade. He was right. I had lied. Over and over again. Every bedtime story, every heart-to-heart, every lesson about trust, I'd built them on a foundation of secrets. I didn't want to hurt you, I said, my own voice breaking now. I thought I was doing the right thing. He stared at me for a long moment, his chest heaving. And then, without another word, he stormed out of the garage, the photograph clutched in his hand. I stood there, frozen, my heart heavy as the sound of the screen door slamming echoed through the house. For years, I'd kept that box locked away, believing the past was better left buried. But now it was out in the open, and there was no way to stuff it back in the dark. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Because if Ethan kept digging, if he kept pulling at the threads, I wasn't the only one who'd pay the price. Claire, Mark, the whole damn family. We were standing on a fault line, and it was about to crack wide open. The screen door slammed so hard the frame rattled, and I knew Ethan wasn't just angry, he was broken. And I had done that to him. My legs felt heavy, but I forced myself inside, my chest tight with the weight of a secret that was no longer mine alone. The living room was empty, except for the faint sound of footsteps pounding up the stairs. Then a door upstairs slammed shut. His mother's old room. Ethan always stayed there when he visited. I could almost hear his breathing through the walls, shaky and uneven, the kind of breathing that comes when the world you know suddenly collapses. I stood there, clutching the doorframe, wondering if I should go to him, explain everything now, or give him space. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about a photograph or a name. This was the crack that would split open every secret we'd fought so hard to bury. And sure enough, it wasn't long before the phone rang. I didn't even have to look at the caller ID to know who it was. Claire. Mothers always know when something's wrong with their kids. I swallowed hard and picked up the phone. Claire. Her voice was sharp, panicked. Dad? What happened? Ethan just called me crying, saying something about a baby and lies. What the hell is going on? I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my temple. Claire, listen to me. No, you listen, she snapped, her voice trembling with anger. You promised me, Dad. You promised this would never come out. I didn't tell him anything, I said quickly, my voice rising despite myself. He found the box, Claire. The one in the garage. There was silence on the other end, heavy and suffocating. Then, in a voice so cold it sent a shiver down my spine, she said, You kept that box? I thought I hid it well enough, I whispered, shame washing over me. I didn't think. You didn't think, she cut in, her voice breaking. You never think, Dad. Do you have any idea what this is going to do? To him? To us? I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles white. He was bound to find out someday, Claire. Secrets like this, they don't stay buried forever. Her breath hitched, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then she said, in a voice so quiet I barely heard her, You need to fix this. Do you hear me? Whatever you have to say, whatever you have to do, you fix it before he hates me forever. And then the line went dead. I stood there, the silence of the house pressing down on me like a weight. Fix it. How do you fix something like this? I made my way upstairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the door to Claire's old room, I paused. I could hear muffled sobs from the other side, the kind that tear through the soul. My heart cracked at the sound. I knocked gently. Ethan? No answer. Ethan, please. Let me in. Still nothing. Then, after a long moment, his voice came, raw and broken. Why didn't anyone tell me? I rested my forehead against the door. Because your parents, they thought it was best. He let out a bitter laugh, choked with tears. Best for who? Them? You? Sure as hell wasn't best for me. Ethan, please. The door swung open, and there he was, his face streaked with tears, his eyes red and blazing with hurt. He shoved the photograph against my chest. Tell me everything. Right now. I hesitated, and that hesitation was all it took to push him over the edge. Don't you dare lie to me again, he shouted, his voice echoing through the hallway. You've been lying my whole life. All of you. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I nodded slowly. Okay, I whispered. Okay. You deserve the truth. We sat on the edge of the bed, the silence between us heavy, broken only by his uneven breathing. I stared at my hands for a long time before I finally spoke.